Just a normal morning for me. I have breakfast with my wife. I take my kids to school. I'm living in Brentwood, California. Got to go to the bank. So I go down to Bank of America, do my business in there. I'm walking out. I see a guy by the name of John LaPerla. He was a postal inspector. He was originally on my case in New York. And I see him out in California. And I thought maybe he moved out there. So, hey, John, how you doing? Next thing I know, I got 15 agents outside. They throw me in the paddy wagon, and I'm on my way to 3 years in solitary confinement. Sit down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing great. Getting closer to the end of summer. Hope you're having a great August. Any vacations that you might be taking that you missed last year because of the pandemic, hopefully you're getting it all in this summer and enjoying it. I've been working hard, and as you can see, we continue to do the as best as we possibly can on YouTube, providing the content for all of you. I hope you're enjoying it. So, what are we going to do today? I get asked all the time about prison stuff. People are intrigued about prison. They want to know what prison life was all about. I get it. We have a lot of people in prisons throughout this country in both state, federal joints, jails, detention centers, juvenile halls. It's a big population, and a lot of stuff goes on there. A couple of weeks back, we did the movie Shot Caller. We reviewed it, and you kind of got an understanding of the gang culture in prison and what that's all about in some of the state prisons that took place here in California. I get asked a lot about my prison experiences, and I can tell you this. I've either been in prison or visiting prison my entire life. Started with my dad. I think the first time I went to see him, I was, 7 or 8 years old. When he got in trouble early on, my mother took me. It wasn't really a prison, it was a jail at that point. But I remember, you don't forget things like that. Then obviously visited him throughout the 60s when he was going through his stuff. And then he went to prison in 1970. Started out in Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas on a federal case that I'm sure well aware of. And then I had my own situations. I was, arrested, 17, 18 times. So, I had plenty of jail experience. And then, of course, most of you know that I did my 8 years in prison. And of course, a lot of things happen, and I can go into incidents. And I know there's a lot of people, or at least a few of them, I should say, that talk a lot about prison online and YouTube, and they educate some of you. We all have stories. I got a million of them too. But this one in particular, I wouldn't bore you with the everyday drudgery of prison. And that's what it is. It's just drudgery every day, But there are a few things that stand out. And one thing I want to tell you about today was the second time I was put in prison. After I had gotten a 10-year prison sentence, I did 5 years. I was released on parole. I was home for, I believe, 13 months, and then violated my parole and was put back in prison. This is the federal system. So basically, here's what happened. I knew while I was on parole, the feds had put a lot of pressure on me. They were, trying to have me become a major witness. For those of you that know my story, I had walked away from that life. It became very public. Life magazine wrote it up. It was on documentaries, on television. Word was out on the street that I was in trouble. Right? A hit put out on me. The FBI came and told me, Franzese, you're a dead man anyway, cooperate with us. I had a lot of that stuff going on. And look, I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. I did want out of the life. I knew that wasn't easy. You don't just walk away. I knew people were going to be upset with me. I knew my father was not going to be happy about it, to deal with my dad. He was a made guy, well-respected guy in that life. Carmine Persico was my boss. He was a rough guy, and I knew that it wouldn't sit well with him. He and I at one time were fairly close. He took it very personal when I walked away. Anyway, I'm in trouble on the street, right? I moved out to California. I'm with my wife. I walked away from that life basically to give my family a life, because I saw what happened in my family, my mother, brothers and sisters, destroyed as a result of my father's involvement in that life and the 40 years he did in prison. But here's what happened in this specific incident. The feds were kind of getting upset with me, They wanted me to cooperate. I was sitting down with them. I was talking to them, but not giving them anything that I knew would send somebody to prison. Look, I was kind of a guy that was able to manipulate things on the street. And so I was kind of playing this little game with the feds at that point in time, talking to them, letting them believe that I was out of the life, because I really was. That wasn't a game, but just wanted them to understand I don't want no more trouble. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm telling you about my life. What do you want to know about me? I'll tell you. But I did it in such a way where they weren't satisfied. They wanted more. They had brought me in. They picked me up while I was on parole to testify against a good friend of mine at the time, John Riggi. He was the boss of the DeCavalcanti family back in New Jersey. And he and I had a deal together on these windows in Manhattan, that every window that came into Manhattan was put into a building they had to pay us a tariff on. And he and I, through a series of circumstances, we became friends. Jimmy Rotunda was another friend of mine. He was his underboss at the time, so I was close with them. The way this happened was there was somebody that got convicted on the Giuliani case that I was tried for and eventually acquitted on. One of my co-defendants was convicted, and he became a government informant, and he told the feds that John Riggi and I were partners. The feds bring me into Newark. John Riggi was on trial, and they were going to put me on the stand to testify. Long story short, I didn't go on the stand to testify. The government was mad at me. I told them what really happened. I didn't implicate John Riggi. They sent me back to California. Prosecutor was very upset with me, started cussing me out, whatever. Send me back. So I go back to California. I knew I was in trouble at that point. You don't get the feds mad at you. When you do, it doesn't end up good. So I'm on parole. Anyway, within 10 days, I'm violated, okay? The circumstances that day, I got up normally in the morning. We were living out in California. Had breakfast with my wife, sent the kids to school, and I went to a bank in Brentwood, Bank of America, and I was making a deposit, or I don't remember what I was doing in there. I wasn't robbing the bank, that's for sure. However, as I walk out of the bank, I noticed a postal inspector by the name of John LaPerla. He was one of the agencies that was on my initial case. And I remember having a conversation with him when I took my plea, and he said to me, "Michael, when I retire, I want to move out to California. Maybe you can help me get a job." That was the postal inspector asking me that. I said, "Sure, John, no problem." He was a nice guy. So I walk out of the bank and I see John LaPerla. And they say, "Hey, John, how you doing?" I said, "What, did you retire? You came out to California?" He says to me, "No, Mike," he said, don't get upset or don't get excited, but he said, "We're here to arrest you." I said, "Arrest me?" I walk out of the bank, there's probably 10 agents, LA County, FBI, they got a paddy wagon. It was embarrassing. You would have thought I was robbing a bank, just grabbing me like that on a parole violation. They throw me in a paddy wagon. They went into the bank. They leaned my bank accounts, put me in a paddy wagon, and John didn't get in there, but there was 2 agents in the paddy wagon with me. And I said, "What's up with you guys?" And they said, "Franzese, we're done with you. We don't want you to cooperate. Don't tell us anything. We got new charges coming down against you. We violated your parole. Quote, you'll never see the street again." I said, "Okay." They went to my house with a search warrant. My wife was devastated. I mean, it was a bad scene. I just left the house. She didn't know that I wouldn't be coming home for a number of years. So anyway, they take me to the federal jail in Los Angeles, MDC, and they put me in administrative detention, which is another fancy word for the hole. I'm in solitary, 6x8 cell. And they put me in there, and I got to be honest, it was tough, okay? Because I said, you know what? This is going to be a real problem for me. I said, they're indicting me on new charges. What could it be? There were so many informants out on the street now that was saying so many things about so many people. Because remember, this was now in 1990, I believe, or 91. I remember the date. And the Racketeering Act, Giuliani and company have put a lot of guys away. A lot of guys had turned hard informants. I had some exposure on the street, and I'm saying, man, what are they going to come up with now? Is it going to be a murder charge? What are they going to come up with now? And I'm in there. I can honestly say I think it was the worst night of my life up till that point, because I said, look, I said, my wife. I said, I did 5 years in prison. She was 21 years old when we got married. We had 2 little kids, 3 kids at that point. They were babies. And I said, she's 27. She waited for me for 5 years, 13 months on parole. We had a tough parole time. She's 27 years old. How's she going to wait for me now? I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I said, I'm going to lose my wife. And I did all of this for my wife. I walked away from that life because of her. I said, I'm going to lose her. I said, they can't put me out on the yard. I said, they're going to use the excuse that people are trying to kill me. They're going to hold me in administrative detention, which is, again, a fancy word for the hole. When you don't do anything to get yourself locked in the hole, they say it's administrative detention for your own protection or whatever excuse they want to use. That's administrative detention. I had already done hold time, so I understood that. I said, so I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this 6x8 cell if they convict me on another charge. I said, on the parole violation, I can't get more than 5 years, or 4 years, I think was the max at that time. I said, all right, if I got to do 4 years, I'll do 4 more. I said, but what else are they going to come down with? Now, you got to understand, I had already been through 5 trials. I took a plea. I got a 10-year sentence. I had a $15 million restitution. The government went through me like Grant through Richmond, cost me millions of dollars in legal fees. The first 5 years, I supported my family. They didn't have to work. You know, I made arrangements for them to survive during that time. I said, but what's going to happen now? I mean, the money's running out. They're watching me like crazy. I said, this is a bad situation. I want to tell you how bad, and I don't care admitting this. You know, some people want to, you know, be all macho and admit, you know, oh, don't worry about it, I'll do all the time. Yeah, okay, that's good for you. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I was scared. You spending the rest of your life in prison. I was only 39 or 40 years old. That could be a long time. As it turns out, my dad lived to 103. So if I had even half of his genes, I was going to live a long time in the hole. I said, 6x8 cell. I said, losing everything I got, losing my wife, my children. It's a scary thing. You know, I'll tell you how scared I was. I used to demean people that were suicidal. I called them weak. I said, how do you not face up to your troubles? You're weak. I don't do that anymore. Now, I wasn't suicidal that night. I wasn't that brave. But honestly, I wanted to lay my head on that cot and just not wake up. It was too painful to think of what was coming up, too painful to think of my future, too painful to think that I had to have my wife, like my mother did, go and visit my father for 20 years in prison. Made a basket case out of her, destroyed my family. I said, is this what I'm going to cause this young girl? Probably won't be with me that long. Who knows? And I got to spend my life like an animal in this cell? You know? I'd rather go to sleep and not wake up. And that's not bravery. That's just a fact. You know, it's, again, I'll say this. You know, people, oh, you know, you should get the death penalty. Try putting somebody in a 6x8 cell in solitary confinement away from everybody for the rest of their life. If you don't think that's punishment, go try it out. Try 1 day, try 2, try a week, and tell me the death penalty is probably merciful at that point in time. You know? But I don't believe in the death penalty for another reason, and I'll tell you why, and I'll say it again, because our government makes mistakes. There were 200 and some odd people that I know of that were freed, that were on death row through DNA evidence. You don't put people to death, even one time, make a mistake. If you make a mistake one time and you put an innocent person to death, the whole system stinks, you don't do it. Put them in jail for the rest of their life. Trust me, it's punishment, in the hole. And that's where people go when they have solitary like that. So, I'm laying on that cot and I'm saying, you know what? I'm done. Prison guard walks by my cell. He looks in on me, opens the flap. He says, Franzese, you okay? You don't look good tonight. I said, hey, get away from me. I don't want to see you or anybody else. Leave me alone. Get away. I chased him. He left. Comes back about a minute later, and this flap of the door opens, pushes something through, boom, falls on the floor. I hear like a thump. I was kind of groggy, just laying there, eyes closed. And I looked down, being honest, it was a Bible. Now, you know what? I don't want to see a Bible. You know, look, I grew up Catholic. My wife and my mother-in-law trying to turn me into a Christian. I was paying attention, being nice, but you know what? I wasn't really buying into it. I'm got my own life, and I got to try to get myself out of this mess. I thought I was a guy always in control of myself and my fate, my destiny. But I'm looking down at that Bible, and I'll be honest with you, I'm getting mad. I'm getting angry. I don't want a Bible. I'd rather have a bottle of Prozac or something, forget what I was going through. I'm looking down. I got really upset. I jumped off the cot, not exaggerating, telling you the truth. It's not drama, it's reality. I jumped off the cot. I picked up that Bible and I slammed it against the cinder block wall as hard as I could. Just everything came out of me. And I'm standing there for about a minute, and then, I said to myself, you know what? I got nothing but enemies. Both sides. On the street and in government. I don't need another enemy. Now, I believed in God. God makes sense to me. I believe in intelligent design. And I just don't understand how everything can exist without intelligent design. That's me. That was my opinion of God, a creator. I said, you know what? I don't need another enemy. And I picked up the book. And I looked up at that cement ceiling. And I said, you know what, God, if you're up there, show me. Give me something to make me feel better, man. I can't deal with this. I'm really upset tonight. I'm having a problem. Help me out. And I'm holding a book. I went to Catholic school. You don't really read the Bible in Catholic school. You read the catechism. Priest reads the Bible from the pulpit on Sunday. He reads the gospel. So I wasn't familiar with the Bible. But I'm holding a book, and I look down, and the book just opens up. Just like that. And it opens up to the book of Proverbs. And was that a coincidence? Maybe at the time. I don't see it that way now, but at the time I did. And I started reading the book of Proverbs. It's a historical book. It's history. It's about King Solomon, way back when. And he wrote, I think, 90% of the book of Proverbs. And I started to read it. And I don't know if you ever read that book, but Solomon was brilliant. Not only was he wealthy, wealthiest guy on the planet, but he was brilliant. And I start reading it, and I'm starting to get into it and starting to forget what was going on around me. I knew they were going to transport me back to Brooklyn in the morning. I had to face the judge, Judge Henderson Morrison. He's dead now. And I start to forget a little bit about what's going on around me. And I'm reading the book. I'm saying, man, this guy's smart. He's brilliant. And I came to a Bible verse that kind of just stopped me cold. Now, I want to make this clear, all right? I don't have any supernatural connection to God. I never saw God in a dream. I never had a vision. He doesn't speak to me audibly where I can hear him. Never had any of that. So this just kind of happened that night. I read this verse, and it kind of struck me cold. And it was Proverbs 16:7. And it says, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him. Now, you know what got me? The enemies part. I just finished telling you, I had nothing but enemies at that point in time. And I'm saying, even his enemies are at peace with him? I'd give anything to have my enemies at peace. Probably wouldn't be in a hole if it was for that. And then I get kind of convicted. I'm just thinking of the verse. Stuff like this happens. And I'm saying, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord. And I kind of just, for that moment, started to review my life. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I left the life. I'm walking away. But I did it for my own purpose. I did it for my own benefit. I didn't do it for anybody else's benefit. I certainly didn't do it for God. Yeah, I did it for my wife and my little children because I wanted to give them a better life, but maybe it was kind of selfish on my part too. After all, I did defy my oath. I betrayed my oath of omerta. I took that oath. And even though I didn't put people in trouble, I still violated my oath. I betrayed it. So I said, have my ways been pleasing to God? I don't think so. So I kind of got convicted. And then I started to read a little bit more because the book was intriguing. Then I came to another verse. And this verse now, I'm going to tell you something, people. It's become the verse of my life. I really mean that. I want to tell you something. I'm not here to preach to you. As Christians, it's not our job to preach and convert you and make you a Christian. Any Christian that tries to do that is doing the wrong thing. That's not what the Bible tells us to do. It's not what we're supposed to do, and it's not what we can do. Only God can turn you into anything, a Christian for sure. But it is our obligation to share what God has done in our lives. Mark 16:15, when Jesus said, go out and share, preach the gospel, the good word rather, to all of creation. So we are obligated to share. I'm sharing a story with you tonight. That's all it is. You do what you want with it, not forcing it on you. This verse, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Because you know why, people? Sometimes we just don't understand. We don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do that night. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. After I read that verse, I got angry again. And I said, you know what, God? Come on. I trusted my father more than anything. I followed him into this life. I took a blood oath, became a made guy, followed him into the life, became a made guy in that life, spent all these years, and look where it got me. I may be here for the rest of my life. I said, if you're God and you can do something about this, I'm challenging right now. Prove it to me. Show me some evidence that you really do exist. That's what came into my head. You know, my wife, my mother-in-law, had been talking to me about God and all that, and I was being polite and I was listening. But you know, I'm a guy, you got to show me the evidence. I don't take things at face value that easily. You know, I know a little bit about evidence. I've been to trial so many times, grand juries investigated my father's case. I kind of think in terms of evidence. So you got to show me stuff. I said, God, show me, prove it to me. Well, make a long story short, I spent 29 months and 7 days in the hole. They gave me 4 years on the parole violation. The big case that they were trying to build against me fell apart. They couldn't indict me. So the bottom line, I had 4 years to go. They kept me in that hole 29 months and 7 days, 6x8 cell, 24/7, me and God. There's nobody else in there. And I took that Bible and I read it inside out and upside down. I don't know how many times. If you see my prison Bible, there's more of my notes on there than there is scripture, because I scribble on it. Don't ever give me a book to read. I'm going to scribble all over it. That's just how I do things. And I told my wife, I said, you know what, you want me to believe this? I said, send me in some books. She said, well, you know, Christian books? I said, no, I want books on everything, everything. I want to see Muslim faith. I want to see Hindu. I want to see Buddha. I want to see everything. I got nothing but time on my hands. Send me everything. She did. Started sending me in books. Started to read. And I had Christian books too. The first Christian book I read was Chuck Colson's Born Again. I was intrigued by it. Good book. I had a Sony Walkman, and I used to listen to Pastor Greg Laurie. I never heard of him before, but he interpreted scripture in such a way that made it easy for me to understand as I was reading it. And I want to tell you this. In those 29 months and 7 days, it became very clear to me that the Bible was truly God's Word, and I became a follower of Christ as a result of that. Now, that was my experience. I got out of prison in '95. So for the last 35 years, this is what I believe. It's only become more clear to me throughout the years for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just telling you my prison experience. And I will tell you this. I don't know if guys want to play a hero. It's not easy to be in solitary confinement. I learned through that time we weren't meant to be solo creatures. We were meant to be social creatures. When those lights went out at night, I heard a lot of moaning and groaning. Saw a lot of stuff go on in the hole as best as I could see it. There were times when I had a steel door. I couldn't see anything if I looked through the hatch. There were times when they moved me. I spent 11 months out of that 29 months in the hole in LA County Jail. They had bars, so I was able to see stuff. That's when I was in the hole with the Menendez brothers and the Ninja Killer and everybody else. Same tier as O.J. Simpson eventually came on. A lot of stuff goes on because people, they kind of lose it, some of them. It's not easy. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. It's tough. If I didn't have my Bible and my beliefs during that time, and of course my wife and children, something that I was motivated, I had incentive. I never gave up. I said, I'm getting out of this thing. I'm going home. I fought my case for me, a whole lot of stuff. But you know, Bible really helped me. You know, some people say, oh, you know, it's a crutch. It's not a crutch. What kind of a crutch? You either believe something and you act upon it or you don't. It worked for me. I believed it. And since I came home, it's only become more powerful to me. So that's my story. And once again, you know, people say to me, Michael, oh, you know, come on, Christians. I said, look, let me break it down to you very, very simple. Let's make believe we were in a burning building. We were up on the 19th floor. Building is burning. I've been in that building many times. You've never been there. I've been on that floor. There's 5 doors that'll get you, that you could walk through, but only one door will get you out to safety. Should I look at you and say, hey, take your pick, or should I lead you through that door? Well, as Christians, that's what we see ourselves doing. We're obligated to talk to you about it like I am now. But it's your choice which door to choose. Totally on you. You have a free will in this life. Nobody's going to take that away from you. God is not going to take that away from you. Communism might. Other things might. Prison does, but not God. I can tell you this, a lot of other things happened, but I did spend 29 months and 7 days in that hole. The warden finally let me out when I had 6 months to go, and I already told that story, so I'm not going to tell it now, maybe another time. Sometimes you think things are coincidences, and sometimes they're not. Just before I went in, Colombo family was going to war, my family. I felt a tremendous pull. I was on parole. I felt a tremendous pull to go back and be with my guys. Because the guy that was trying to take over for Persico, Vic Arena, was not a guy that I liked. And there were two factions. There was a Persico faction and the Arena faction. Now, Persico was mad at me because I walked away from the life. In my head, I want to prove it to you that I'm still loyal. I'm not looking to hurt, so I'm going to come back and help. But I couldn't violate my parole. What am I going to tell my wife? I was just so torn. And I had almost made the decision to go back, break my parole. It was just killing me inside. And then I walked into the bank and walk out and get arrested. The war starts. It lasts for 3 years. I'm in the hole that whole time. 13 guys, I believe, got killed. I think 63 guys in the family got indicted, and another 18 or 19 became informants. And I'm in the hole. Now, was I protected at that point? If I would have violated, what would have happened? Maybe I would have got involved in the war. Maybe I'd have got killed, indicted. Who knows? I'm in the hole. Sometimes when we're at our worst, I think God is at his best. Maybe I was there for a reason. I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not a prophet. I don't know, and I don't hear things audibly, but coincident, rather, that I'm in that hole when a war is raging in our family. And then I come out, and for the last 25 years, I've been given a platform that's taken me all around the world. So you'll figure it out. Because I do believe God has a plan and a purpose for us, and sometimes we don't know what it is. But I believe it. So here I am, 35 years later, and been through a lot of struggles and challenges, but I have no complaints, people. I really don't. Whatever I've been through is a blessing because I could either be dead or in prison for the rest of my life. So I consider myself very fortunate every day. And that's all I can tell you. So what do you get out of this? That's up to you. Like I said, I'm not imposing anything on you, and I'm not trying to turn you into anything. I'm just telling you my story. You can read my books. Doing a television series now on my life. A lot of this is going to come out. It's not a Christian series by any means. It's a hard-hitting mob series about my life, something that I'm pretty intrigued about. I got a new book coming out, Mafia Democracy. You'll be seeing it soon. So that's it. You take from this what you would like. Just another story, but it's a true one. So, hope you enjoyed it. MichaelFranzese.com. The crew, keep coming. We keep building. 18,000 people in there, and they're getting a lot out of it. My inner circle, I love them all. We're getting together, I believe, in October. It's all being worked out now. We're going to meet so many of you. We do our Zoom calls every 2 weeks. I get Q&As during that time. People are sending me things. We have content. It's just great. People are encouraging one another. And it's all about encouragement, people. And during this pandemic, it was just a blessing to so many. Don't ask me, ask them. Get in the inner circle and ask them. They'll tell you. Join.michaelfranzese.com. How do I always leave you? Same way, from the heart. Be safe. Be healthy. God bless. And yes, I will see you.